In 1990, a deranged Pakistani film reinvented the controversial author of the Satanic Verses as an international supervillain hell-bent on the destruction of Islam and the corruption of society. The film made headlines when it was briefly banned by the British Board of Film Censors, a ban that brought it much more attention than its makers might have otherwise dreamed of. As you may recall, Salman Rushdie caused a bit of a kerfuffle with his novel The Satanic Verses in 1988. More accurately, a lot of religious fanatics took great offence to a work of fiction, rioted around the world, killed a bunch of people, and forced Rushdie into hiding with a bounty placed on his head by Iran's supreme leader. It was perhaps the first salvo of the ongoing culture war between Western secularism and Islamic extremism, although unlike in more recent cases, publishers, journalists and academics were all fairly united in their support of Rushdie and his right to free expression, and against the idea that blasphemy should be punishable by death. The threats against Rushdie, his publishers and bookstores came in many forms, some trivial, some horrific. The case seemed to galvanise the more extremist elements of Islamic society, and things have never been quite the same since. But among the death threats, murders and firebombings came to be what might be the most ridiculous and bizarre attack on the author, in the form of the Pakistani film International Guerrillas, where Rushdie was transformed from an acclaimed but little-read literary author into an international criminal mastermind, fully intending to obliterate Islam from the face of the earth. The 1990 film tells the story of three Pakistani brothers who joined forces to seek out and kill the evil Rushdie, who is here to reveal to be a supervillain head of an international gang out to wipe Islam from existence, thus paving the way for a series of casinos, nightclubs and brothels to be opened. Such places apparently not already in existence anywhere in 1990. The villainous Rushdie is hiding out in the Philippines, guarded by a private army that is led by, of course, an Israeli general, and spends his time torturing and killing mujahideen, sometimes by reading passages from his books to them. Sounds like someone had been watching episodes of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Eventually, the three brothers arrive in the Philippines where, disguised in Batman costumes, they track down Rushdie and seduce the general's daughter, converting her to Islam in the process. After a gun battle, Rushdie flees, only to be trapped as three giant Qurans appear in the sky and fire bolts of lightning at him. Sorry about the spoilers there, but believe me, this is just as entertaining when you know what happens.
शक्की हुई हो किताब जिते शक की कोई गुंजाइश नहीं
मन ले शैतान के कलाम पाक का मुहाफिज खुद खुदा है
आज तेरी मौत हर मुनकरे रसूल ले इबरत बन जाएगी
The Urdu film lasts for a whopping 167 minutes and is full of song and dance scenes, as was standard with Pakistani films of the time. Producer Sajjad Gul has denied that there was any deep meaning in the film. It was simply designed as a crowd-pleasing fantasy, though what that says about the crowd in question is a matter of opinion. It is, of course, entirely dreadful by any conventional standards, with the production values of a home movie and awful performances all around. In normal circumstances, it probably would have disappeared without a trace, but not for the first time. The British censors were determined to give an otherwise forgettable film a degree of immortality. The problem for the BBFC was not so much the content of the film, though it might be argued that it was a clear incitement to violence against a living person. But no, the issue here was one of libel. The BBFC had some form with banning films that it considered to be potentially libelous. Back in 1958, the board had refused certificates to a pair of films that sought to expose the secret Nazi past of now respectable German citizens. That the claims of the films were true was neither here nor there. When a London-only release of one of the films was delayed by a successful libel action, the BBFC decision seemed validated. However, deciding whether or not a film libeled a living person was not something that the BBFC was qualified to do, and legal advice suggested that they should not try. No libel action could ever hold the board legally responsible for the content of a film that they'd simply certified, and banning films on this basis was a considerable overreach of their powers. In the case of International Guerrillas, however, it was slightly more complex. The BBFC's leader, James Furman, had an obsession with ensuring that films didn't break all manner of laws, no matter how trivial or petty, and some of which no one else even knew existed. And he thought that the film might be considered a criminal libel, which was a more serious offence than its civil equivalent, potentially leading to a breach of the peace. While there were several question marks over this, not least of all was the fact that the film could be seen as satire, or at the very least was hardly going to be taken seriously by anybody apart from the sort of extremists who already wanted to kill the author and so needed no additional encouragement, it was decided that the film should be banned outright. This, of course, made International Guerrillas immediately much more appealing to people who might have otherwise been disinterested in a crappy 3-hour movie full of dance routines. Rushdie was only too aware of this and publicly stated that he had no intention to sue anyone involved. As a writer, I am opposed in principle to the use of the archaic criminal laws of blasphemy, sedition, and criminal libel against creative works, even in the case of a film which quite plainly vilifies me. If that film had been banned, it would have become the hottest video in town. Everyone would have seen it, he stated. With this assurance, the BBFC decided that there was no justification for a continued ban. Clearly there was going to be no legal case taken against it, and the film was duly awarded an 18 certificate. It slipped out, more or less unnoticed, on UK VHS through Famous Video, an importer of Pakistani titles that only distributed in Pakistani shops. It remained unknown and unseen by the wider public, apart from a few anti-censorship zealots who ventured into their local Pakistani shop in search of it. But generally, any wider interest in the film, which had been a big hit in its native country, fizzled out as soon as the ban was lifted. And it now stands only as a curious example of the depths to which some people will sink creatively, and the ever-vigilant protectiveness of the British censors. If you enjoy this sort of archival archaeology and want to see more of the same, don't forget to subscribe, like, share and comment. And feel free to show more concrete support by buying us a coffee or supporting us on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.